welcome back to another video. So recently I put a poll on my community tab asking which of the curly haired woes you struggled with the most. The one that won out of all of them was that your curls don't hold or don't last throughout the day, and then Frizz ran a close second, and then number 3 was actually volume up at the roots. So in this video, I'm actually going to be addressing the first one, which is having your curls hold throughout the day. The upside to this is that a lot of these tips work really well for frizz control. Now, you're not going to be able to have frizz-free hair. That's an unrealistic expectation. If you have waves, curls, or coils, you're going to have some frizz. You might have frizz-free for maybe a few minutes, but as soon as you start moving around and your hair is moving and you're living your life, you're going to get some frizz. It just goes with the territory, but a lot of these things can help reduce some of that frizz so that it isn't so completely out of control. And if you're new here, my name is Michelle. I'm a licensed hairstylist with over 20 years of experience. And on this channel, I use those 20 years of experience to help you have healthy, happy hair. So I have already washed my hair and I used my Verb Ghost shampoo. And then I followed that up with the Wavy Curl Therapy Lightweight Protein Treatment. And this is a foam, and you just put it in after you've shampooed, and you leave it sit there for a few minutes, and then you rinse it right back out. You don't need to use a conditioner with this. You can, but you don't have to. I didn't. And even though I haven't been using leave-ins lately, I am actually going to be using a leave-in today. So I'm going to be using the multitasking conditioner from Curlsmith. And I'm just feeling like my hair actually could use a leave-in for a change. And I like this one because it's got some protein to it, and my hair loves all the things protein. So we are just going to go ahead and apply that, and then I will continue on and show you all of my tips for helping your curls to last throughout the day and beyond. So now that I have my foundation in place, I am ready to start with the styling routine, and that would actually be my first tip, is to make sure that you start off with a great foundation, with making sure that your hair is nice and clean, that you don't have buildup, and that you're using both a shampoo and a conditioner that work really well for your hair and leave your hair in a nice balanced state going forward into your routine. You cannot have a really good routine with your stylers and wind up with really great hair if you don't start with a good foundation. And my second tip would actually be products, and layering products specifically. I like to layer products because each product does a different thing for your hair, and I find that using smaller amounts of several different products all together is a lot better than using a large quantity of just one product and getting mediocre results from that versus much better results that are more tailored to my hair by layering a multitude of different products. It might seem like a lot of work or a lot of products or just a lot of product in general, but I would much rather put all of my time and effort into my hair up front on wash day, because that's going to keep my hair lasting longer to where I don't have to do anything to it for the next few days, ideally. And if I do have a really good wash day, then that's exactly how it goes. All I have to do on day 2 is shake my hair out after I take it out of the bonnet and go on, and same thing with day 3. So that's why I really like taking my time and putting all of my effort into my wash day and using multiple products and making sure that I get a combination that does all of the things that I need to do, instead of expecting one product to do everything when it can't. And as far as it making my hair feel producty, having all these different products in there, it doesn't, because I just reduce the amount of each product that I'm using, so that overall I'm using a same amount of product that I might otherwise use if I was just using one, maybe even less, because since I'm using multiple products for multiple different needs, I'm actually using less product overall than what I would if I were trying to make one product do absolutely everything. So I am actually going to be starting out with the Curlsmith Bouncy Strength Volume Foam, and as per usual, my hair is stuck to everything. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a good shake, and this is actually going to go up at my roots. This is what's going to help me with a little bit of volume up here at my roots. Also, this is going to help with curl formation and definition up here at my roots as well. I know a lot of people advise to not put products at your roots, to put it at your mid-lengths and down, because otherwise your roots will get really weighed down. And that's true only depending on the product. If you're using really heavy creams or something like that, that will weigh your roots down. But if you're using something like this that is volumizing and is light and airy, it's going to do the opposite. It's actually going to add volume. It's going to give you some hold so that whatever curl you have at your roots is going to be able to stay there. Because some of us have really weak curl patterns at our roots. I have a combination. I have some spots where my hair curls really tightly right up to my roots, and then I have other spots where it doesn't start curling until further down, or if it does curl up here, it's just a big loose wave and it's not really a curl, and so it loses its curl or it loses its wave really quickly unless I have a product up there to kind of help hold it in place. So the advice to skip putting products on your roots is only partially true, and I wouldn't say to skip it entirely. I would just say switch to a different kind of product that's lighter weight, that's going to help with volume, but also give you a little bit of hold so that if you struggle keeping that root curl and keeping some volume up there, that this can help with both of those. So now that I've got that foam up there, I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the rest of my routine. And so the next thing I do is a curl cream. Now, you don't have to do a leave-in and a curl cream. Some people, their hair works better with just a curl cream or just a leave-in, and you can decide which works best for you. For me, I would have to say, if you need to choose between one or the other, I would recommend a curl cream, just because a curl cream can add the moisture that you need, as well as some definition and a little bit of hold and a little bit of frizz fighting that a leave-in doesn't necessarily do. Most leave-ins will just give you a little bit of moisture and extra conditioning, but doesn't do a lot of those other things. So if you have some really fine, easily weighed down hair and you can't get away with using both, then I would definitely recommend maybe just sticking with a curl cream. Or you could just use the leave-in, but if you're looking for some frizz control and some definition and a little bit of hold, the curl cream might be a better way to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and use AG's Recoil. I have recently fell back in love with this. I don't think I ever fell out of love with this, but I stopped using it for a while because that happens when you're trying a bunch of different things. You forget that you have other things that you really liked and that you used for a really long time, which I used Recoil like for years. And then I started this channel and it got stuck in the back of the cabinet. But I have now started using it again, and I don't know why I ever forgot about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off with about this much. And now this is something where when they say it's concentrated, they mean it's concentrated. I see a lot of people using way too much of this stuff, and you saw the amount that I used. I have long hair, and it is pretty high density, it's coarse, and that's what I used on one side of my head, and then I'm going to use about the same amount on the other side, and that is going to be plenty for the amount of hair that I have. Because one of the things about this is that you can sit there and keep emulsifying it, and it just keeps multiplying, so you can keep going and keep adding more because it keeps producing more. So now I'm going to add another little bit on the other side. And like I said, this should be all I need for my amount of hair. And I'm starting by putting it into my hair from the mid-lengths down, just because that's where I want the majority of it concentrated. But then I'm re-emulsifying and I am bringing it up to my roots, because at this point I have less on my hands than what I did before. I do want my roots coated, but not as much as the rest of my hair, so I will just put in whatever little bit is left on my hands at this point. And now that I have that all in there, I'm gonna go ahead and brush it through to evenly distribute. Now that I have that evenly distributed and then I've sectioned off my hair, I'm gonna go ahead and do my brush styling technique. And I did just add a little bit of water to my hair because it was starting to get a little bit drier than what I wanted it to be. Keeping your hair wet throughout your styling process is definitely key to helping with the frizz. It helps reduce frizz as you go along in your routine. If you start working with it while it's drying, it's going to produce more frizz. Also, the more you manipulate your hair, the more frizz you're going to produce as well. Using a brush helps with both definition, and it also helps with frizz because you're smoothing your hair down as you're going through your styling process. And the smoother your hair is to start with, the less frizz you're gonna end up with when you're done. And I'm just gonna go through and do my brush styling technique where I go through and brush it a few times to smooth it out. And then I come up from underneath and I brush out at a 90-degree angle so that my hair isn't stuck to my scalp and I can get some volume. And I kind of shake it just to get the clumps to fall apart or go into their clumps or do whatever they're gonna do, and help encourage that and to get my hair curling up a little bit. So at this point, what I would normally do is move on throughout the rest of my head and completely define my hair and then move on to putting in the gel. However, in this video, I am going to do it a little bit differently because one of the things that really helps to make sure that you're going to have both nicely defined and minimal frizz along with more hold is making sure that all of your strands are covered with your hold product or hold products. And a good way to do that is to put it in section by section, especially if you have high density hair. Like I said, ordinarily I just define like this and then I'll put my gel in afterwards, or my gels if I use two, a lot of times I do, or I'll use a gel and a mousse combo. And like I said, layering multiple products like this does help with both longevity and frizz control. So I am going to actually demonstrate in this video putting in the gel now, section by section, or at least one of the gels, because I'm going to be using two for my whole products. I'm going to be using the Curlsmith Shape Up Aqua Gel. This one is a lighter hold gel. It's kind of a 5 on their scale, so 5 out of 10. And it is a lighter hold gel. I absolutely love it. I think it's a pretty good gel for even being a light hold gel, but I do like mixing it with something that has a little bit more hold. And today that something is going to be my Kinky Curly Curling Custard. This is something that I really like to do just to increase the amount of hold that I have. As opposed to just using only a very strong hold gel, a lot of times I like to mix together maybe 2 lighter hold gels, or a light hold gel and a medium hold gel, or a light hold gel and a harder hold gel that has a really good cast. I just find that mixing a couple of different gels together, or mixing a gel with a mousse that has a lot more hold and then also gives volume, is another great way to get a lot more hold in my curls and a lot more days out of my wash day, rather than just using one gel. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in my hair now, and I'm going to use a smaller amount because I'm only putting it in just this bottom section to start with, and I'm doing it section by section. So I don't want to overdo it since this is how I'm doing it. And how many times can I say do? So I'm just kind of glazing over the top and then scrunching it in. And this is where you're gonna get your scrunching in there. And that's why I didn't scrunch it earlier when I was defining it, because I knew I was gonna be scrunching it when I put the gel in. Again, you want to make sure that you're handling your hair as little as possible to avoid creating frizz. And you also want to be sure that whenever you're handling your wet hair, that your hands are either wet or that they have product on them, and that there's enough slip so that your hair isn't going to stick to your dry hands, which is also going to cause frizz. So now that I have this in, I'm going to continue on with the last 2 sections exactly the same way, where I do my brush styling and then I go ahead and put in the liquidy gel. And once I'm done with that, then I will be back to show you the application of the Kinky Curly Curling Custard. And as you can see, I don't have much left, so this video will probably use up everything that's in there. Now that my hair is nicely defined and I have no wet frizz going on, and it's coated in the first lighter hold gel, it is now time to put in this gel. And I tend to like to use watery gels first before using a thicker hold gel. I just find that the watery gels are easier to distribute, but once you have that in there, it becomes easier to distribute the thicker gels. I'm not sure why that is. I think maybe because there's already some slip because of the previous gel. Whatever the case may be, I just find it a lot easier to follow it up. Not to mention, then at this step, I can mostly just scrunch it in rather than bringing it down and glazing it down. And scrunching it in is going to really help bring up those curls, hold everything in place, and also further clump and define my hair. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in. And I chose this one specifically for the hold and also because of the cast. I just find that any gel that gives me a really good hard cast tends to give me better longevity and frizz control. And usually what I wind up doing with these types of gels and what I'm going to be doing for this video is I am going to sleep with the cast in and then scrunch it out in the morning, or at least what's left of it. This definitely helps to protect it while I'm sleeping so it doesn't get as frizzy, the curls don't get as wonky, and the cast works itself out while you're sleeping on it so that there isn't that much to work out in the morning. And I just find that this really helps with both frizz and, like I said, with longevity and getting more days out of it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and continue putting this in here. And this is kind of a weird gel. It's really thick like this, but then once you emulsify it in your hands, it really, and you drop it on the floor, it really thins out and makes it a little bit easier to get into your hair. But as you can see, I'm just very gently going over and kind of going from underneath, and then also very gently scrunching it in from the bottom to really get those ends. And with whatever is left on my hand, which isn't much, then I just kind of pat it and smooth it around on the top because I definitely want some hold up there as well. I don't want so much of the gel that it's going to really weigh down those roots or be a little bit too much for them. So that's why I just pat whatever's left on my hand once I've kind of distributed it elsewhere in my links. And then I'm also going to go ahead and flip upside down. I'm going to do the same thing with another little glob of the Kinky Curly Curling Custard, probably about that much. And I'm going to go upside down and glaze it over and scrunch it in. Now on to the final step before diffusing, and that is going to be to put my Aquage working spray in. Hairspray is key to helping you get longevity and hold for your curls. That's what hairspray is made to do. It is lightweight, it has a lot of hold, and I like to spray it in my hair just before diffusing. However, there are various times that you can spray in hairspray. I did do a video showing how to use hairspray in the middle of your diffusing routine. So if you'd like to check that out, I'll put a card up here. You can put it in before you diffuse. You can put it in after you've diffused for a little while and then continue to diffuse, like I just mentioned, or you can spray it in after diffusing, but before scrunching out the crunch. Just make sure that you don't scrunch out the crunch right after spraying it in. Give it time to dry and set before you scrunch it. Otherwise, you're going to create frizz. Or you could do it the most traditional way to put it in a hairspray, which is after your hair is completely dry styled, the crunch is scrunched out, and then you just spray it in just to lock everything in place at the very end. Or you can actually combine a few of those different techniques. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to spray it in just before diffusing like I normally do. And then I'm also going to be spraying it in just before I scrunch out the crunch when I do that on camera tomorrow morning. So I'm just going to go ahead and give my hair a good all over spray, including making sure I get the front and up at the roots. And then I'm going to flip upside down and I'm going to make sure I spray from underneath. So it's at this point that I tend to keep my hands out of my hair as much as possible while I'm letting it dry. And I will be grabbing the diffuser. I do have a video all about how I diffuse, and I still pretty much diffuse that way. I hover diffuse just until I can start feeling a good cast. And one of the things that I do is I just gently lift up on the bottom of my hair and hold the diffuser here. This kind of helps keep it from getting weighed down by all the water and the product and everything else that's in there, so that my curls can spring up and bounce up and curl to their fullest potential, because otherwise gravity is going to work against you, especially when you've got really long hair, or if you have thick, coarse hair like I do that is very heavy to begin with, and then with all the water and the products in there, it's just going to drag those curls down. So while I'm hover diffusing, I do lift up, and then once I start feeling that cast in there, that's when I start putting my hair into the diffuser and bringing it up to my scalp to really help get everything bounced up, locked in, and nice and dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and diffuse, and I'll be right back. So now that my hair is mostly dry, it's probably about 90 to 95% dry, and the roots are still a little bit damp, but I did that on purpose. And there is one more thing that I am going to do. I am going to blow dry my roots without the diffuser and kind of scrub my head all over the place in order to help get some volume and dry up the rest of those roots. And that's what's going to give me some lift. And as you can see, I kind of already have some wonky lift going on up here, and this is just going to give me a little bit more volume up there as well. So now that's all done and my roots are dry, and I do that while I have the cast in, so then that way I can get the roots dry, get some volume up there without disturbing any of the rest of the curls or causing any frizz. With this really hard cast in there, it's going to really protect and hold those curls in place and keep the blow dryer from kicking up any sort of frizz. That's one of the reasons why I really like having a cast, is because there's a lot of manipulation that you can do with the cast on that is going to protect your curls and your hair so that you can remain as frizz-free or minimal frizz for as long as possible, as well as holding your curls in place for as long as possible. So I do really like a cast for both of those reasons. So now there's only one thing left to do now that my hair is completely dry, and that is to put it in its bonnet for the evening. So I just got this bonnet off of Amazon, and I'll try to link it down below in the description box, but it's just elastic one, and it actually is adjustable, so you can tighten it on, which is what I do. I usually keep it like this to put it on, and then I tighten that up as soon as I have it on. And I put this part in the back because I don't like the little tail hanging down in my face or anywhere else. So I am going to show you how I put this on. I do believe I have some other videos where I've showed this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and show it here. And what I do is I flip my head over, and hopefully this is all getting on camera, but I flip my head over, I bunch my hair all up kind of in a ponytail at the front of my head very loosely, and I put this in, or I put the cap on the back, and then I tuck my hair into the front and tuck out anything that's sticking out on the sides. And then once I have everything nicely tucked in, and I kind of just arrange my hair in there so that it's kind of bunching up more like an accordion and not bent or folded weird, so that I don't wind up with any kind of wonky curls in the morning or any strange kinks or folds. And then I tighten it up, and I just kind of move it into place. I like my ears to be out. I hate when it covers my ears. And I actually put this in just before I go to bed, because I leave this all up front like this, so then that way when I'm sleeping, I'm not sleeping on much of my hair at all, because it's all up front. And so I will just lay on my side or lay on my other side, and usually by the morning it's kind of shifted around all over the place, but at least when I start, it's all up front here and not getting flattened out or slept on or anything like that. So this is typically how I go to bed at night with the cast in order to get more longevity out of my curls. And I am going to go ahead and go to bed, and then I'm going to be back in the morning, and I'll take this bonnet off on camera, show you what it looks like and how I deal with my hair in the morning after I have slept in the cast. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Good morning and welcome to day 2. So I basically just woke up, washed my face, that's all I did. One of the nice convenient things about having the bonnet on is it makes for washing the face a lot easier, because my hair is not in my face, it's all up here.
So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and take this off and see what we're looking at. And this is pretty typical for just out of the bonnet hair. And I'm still gonna leave the cast in it for just a little bit. What I usually like to do is let my hair settle for a little bit, and then I will grab some ghost oil and put that in, and I will start scrunching out the crunch and seeing what we have. So I'm gonna go ahead and have my coffee so that I can actually wake up and have my breakfast and let my hair settle, and then I will come back and scrunch out the crunch on camera and show you what we're dealing with. Or maybe somewhere in there I might also throw in some makeup so I don't keep scaring you throughout the rest of the video. Anyway, I will be back after my breakfast and most importantly, my coffee. I'm back from having breakfast and coffee. I'm much more awake. I've got a little bit of makeup on so I don't look quite so scary, and I got dressed. I'm no longer in my jammies. You might have noticed that I was wearing the same top in my previous clip and also in last night's clip. That's because those were my jammies. I slept in them. Anyway, now I am dressed, fully awake, and let's take a look at how my hair settled. As you can see, it definitely settled down. I don't have a lot of the wonky sticking out all over the place things that I had earlier, and my hair is ready to scrunch out the crunch, or if I want to, I can do one last final step or even two. And I mentioned earlier using some hairspray at this stage of the game, and I definitely recommend this for those of you who have really fine hair that doesn't hold very well, or for those of you who have waves or loose curls that don't hold very well. This is a good last step before you lose the cast, to just spray on a little bit of hairspray. Or if you happen to live in a really humid climate, spraying on this hairspray before you lose the cast is going to help lock everything in and keep the humidity out, especially if you get a hairspray that is kind of a humidity blocker. And I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they usually will state it right on the hairspray that it is a humidity blocker. I happen to live in a very dry climate, so I generally don't worry about those types of things. But if you've been around here for any time, you will know that the Aquage Working Spray is one of my most used products, right along with my Verb Ghost Oil. And there's a reason for that. I've been using this for years, ever since I worked with Aquage products at a salon that I used to work at. I worked with the whole line, and I have loved this ever since. It is just one of my go-tos. I do plan on expanding out and trying more hairsprays, but I really love everything about this. I like the workability. I like the fact that it takes a while before it dries, before it sets, so you can actually, like I said, work with it. That's what the workability means, is giving you a little bit of time before it sets in place. I like the hold factor it gives. The only thing I don't really like is the smell, but I can move past that because it just works so well. So anyway, I am gonna give one final spritz to my hair. Even though I don't really need it at this point, I'm still gonna do it anyway, just to demonstrate. I'm just gonna go ahead and let it set for a little bit before moving on to the next step. So this next step isn't something that I do all the time. I do it if my roots are doing something funky after having slept on it. Usually leaving it settle kind of helps with that. And a lot of times once I scrunch out the crunch, it gets rid of some of the wonkiness up there as well, because sometimes the crunch is actually holding things in a weird spot up here. So once that's gone, it usually falls right into place. However, sometimes I do like to take a blow dryer and do like what I did last night and just blow dry my roots. And this time I'll do it more gently because I don't have as much of a cast right now as what I did last night, because after having slept on it, it's worked some of that out. So I am gonna go ahead and put this on low speed because my blow dryer only has low and high, and then I'm gonna put it on the medium temperature and just kind of blow dry my roots like I did before. And that helps give it a little bit more lift. It helps fluff it up a little bit more. And like I said, get rid of some of those wonky kinks and bends and folds and whatever else might be going on up there. So now it is time, finally, to scrunch out the crunch and see what we've got going on. So I typically go with one pump. Even with all of the hair that I have, I find that that is usually sufficient. But like I said, I do not live in a humid climate, so this is generally all I need. And for those of you who do, you might actually find that mixing a serum, a couple of pumps of serum with maybe a pea-size amount of gel and scrunching out the crunch that way is going to give you a little bit of extra hold and a little bit more humidity blocking abilities. And or for those of you who really have a hard time holding a curl, you could probably either skip this hairspray step and do the gel mixed with the serum and put that in when you're scrunching out your crunch, and that'll also help. So that's another tip. It's not something that I typically do a whole lot because, like I said, I live in a dry climate, and usually all of the steps that I've currently done, which I don't even do all of them on a regular basis, but generally by the products that I've used and the things that I've done, at this point my hair is usually in a really good spot that I just don't really need that extra holdability. So I'm just going to continue working out the crunch. There's a lot because the Kinky Curly Curling Custard definitely gives me quite a bit. So I am just going to continue on and flip upside down and continue scrunching. And that's the cast mostly scrunched out, which is my final tip, especially for those of you living in a humid climate or those of you who have hair that really doesn't like to hold. Leaving in a little bit of the cast is going to help protect those curls and hold them in place, because that cast is just going to lock everything in there and create an actual barrier between your hair and the humidity, so it'll help hold. And as you go about your day, the cast will naturally kind of work itself out, and you'll get more days out of it and less frizz. And as you can see, after scrunching the crunch, I have very minimal frizz. Like I said, frizz-free is kind of an unrealistic goal. You will always have at least a little bit, because a lot of these up here are just little baby hairs that are newly growing out or whatever. Or the other thing too is some of it just doesn't fit in with any of the other curls nearby. I have multiple curl patterns all around my head, and some of those just kind of, the looser ones sit on top of the tighter ones and don't have any home to go into, so they just kind of float around up top. And I suspect some of you probably have that as well. It's actually a very common thing to have multiple curl patterns, and these types of things will happen. But as you can see, I have really decent hold and bouncy curls. I do have a little bit of the cast left in there. Now, I've never used this exact combination of products before, and Kinky Curly gives me great hold and a great cast, but not a whole lot of volume. And even though my hair isn't overly voluminous, it still has a decent amount of volume. And as that cast works out and some of these ends kind of loosen up and fluff up, it's going to get a little bit bigger. Plus, as frizz develops, it tends to get a little bit bigger as well. But I'm overall really happy with these results. I will be probably popping back in tomorrow morning to show you what it's looking like on day 3 and how well it holds up. But I do suspect this is going to hold up really well, because anytime I use Kinky Curly Curling Custard, it tends to do so. So I will either show it to you, or I will let you know how long it lasted, either in the description box, or I'll leave it as a pinned comment. Now, I am aware that this is a lot of steps, it's a lot of products, and it's adding hairspray a couple of times. This isn't something you have to do every single wash day. This isn't even something that I do every single wash day. Like I said, I normally don't coat each individual section with gel. I'll usually put in my curl cream, define it, and then I'll put in my 2 gels or whatever I'm putting in for hold products afterwards, after it's all defined. I don't usually go section by section, but for those of you who are really struggling with hold or really need the extra frizz control, that can be a good way to make sure that your strands are coated. Just make sure that when you're taking those smaller sections that you're using a smaller amount of gel per section, not the same amount of gel that you would use all over your head, and doing that per section, because that's going to get to be a lot. But that is definitely one step that you don't have to do. You can cut that out. You can cut out any of these steps. These are just the things that I know work for all of the issues that came up in the poll that were the top 3, which was hold and frizz and flat roots. And one final thought that I'd like to leave you with is that those of you who have wavy hair or very loose curls, your curls will tend to fall faster than tighter curls do. That's just kind of the nature of looser curls, especially the healthier that your hair is. For whatever reason, extremely healthy hair does not hold curl nearly as well as hair that is slightly damaged. It doesn't seem fair because the whole goal is to have healthy hair. And then when you get healthy hair, your curls will fall flat. It just is kind of how it goes. But those types of curls will definitely let loose their curl a lot sooner. And even though the general advice out there is to use very lightweight products on wavy or loosely curled hair, or to use products that don't have as much hold, I would say do the opposite. Get something that has a little bit more hold. Not necessarily something that's really heavyweight, but I definitely recommend more hold so that it can hold your waves and curls in place and they don't fall as flat. The other thing you can do is combine a couple of lighter hold, lighter weight gels that aren't gonna weigh your hair down and get a little bit more longevity out of that. So it's just a matter of finding the right combination of gels or gels and mousse to get hold that you need. Also, it's worth mentioning that my hair does not feel producty, even though it seems like there's a lot of products going on in here. My hair feels soft and light and bouncy. It doesn't feel weighed down by product. It doesn't feel like I've got a ton of product. The only thing I can feel on here is the little bit of cast that I left in, and that is it. Otherwise, it is very, very soft. And this is all down to the beauty of layering multiple products and using small amounts of each product rather than a ton of just one product, or kind of going a little overboard with each one. So it is possible to use multiple products and have your hair feel like you've got no products at all in your hair, which is exactly what my hair feels like right now. And I could even add one more coat of hairspray at this point in the process and hold my hair for the rest of the day. I'm not gonna do that because I'm totally fine with where I'm at. Like I mentioned before, I don't live in a humid climate, so I'm just gonna leave things as they are. Good morning and welcome to day 3. So I basically just got up a little bit ago, took my bonnet off and let my hair settle. It probably has only been left to settle for about 10 minutes. I usually let it settle for a little bit longer than that to take care of any of the extra wonkiness. But as you can see, it's actually looking pretty good. I don't really have a whole lot of wonky curls or anything sticking out weird, and whatever is kind of sticking out weird at this point is going to settle down over the next few minutes. And I do have a little bit more frizz than yesterday, but not too bad, and I haven't even fluffed my hair up, so let's give it a good fluff and see what it is looking like. And here my hair is all fluffed up, and it didn't cause a whole lot more frizz, and the frizz that's there isn't too bad. It's just gonna give me a little bit of volume, which I'm okay with because the kinky curly, like I said yesterday, doesn't give me a whole heck of a lot of volume. So I am totally fine with how this is looking, and my curls are looking pretty good. I don't have too many wonky bits or anything like that. I am good to go. This is all I need to do. I don't need to do any sort of refresh at this point. And this is why I like to put so much time and effort into my wash day and choose multiple products so that my hair can be just basically fluff and go for the next couple of days after wash day. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found a few tips that you'd like to try out. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.